So let's raise the big questions. How does one give India's women, not just wrestlers, but others in other professions, the courage to speak out? How does one hold VIPs accused of sexual harassment accountable? Is the system geared for cover-ups? These are some of the questions we'll raise tonight. Kiran Bedi, former IPS officer with us. Jagmati Sangwan, National Vice President, AIDWA, All India Democratic Women's Association, left organization and former Indian volleyball player. Vrinda Grover is advocate at the Supreme Court, and Trisha Shetty is founder, She Says. Let's come to each of you to understand, as women, what do you believe should be done? Kiran Bedi, you first. In a case like this, should the women wrestlers specifically first file an FIR before they go on dharna? What should they be doing to ensure they get justice? Because the charges they are making are very serious.
I think they're going through a very immediate process. They've now made a complaint to the Indian Olympic Association, giving them a chance to do justice short of the FIR. And if they feel that they haven't been heard enough, then I think FIR is an ultimate resort. But they're going through a process, and they expect the IOA now to expeditiously give them some finding, some assessment.
Would you advise them to go and file an FIR as well, a first information report, given the fact that if these findings are indeed true, they constitute a criminal offence?
I think they need, they're doing, I think they're giving the IOA a chance. And IOA is an important body, and rather than jumping the gun. But if they don't feel satisfied with the IOA, the option of an FIR is always open.
Vrinda Grover, should they be going to court now, filing an FIR, taking the criminal route, given the fact that otherwise they will find themselves caught in what seems to be a political tug-of-war?
Rajdeep, I think what we need to understand here is that the reason why these incidents, it's not a one-off incident, the sexual harassment incidents as well as the hostile environment, which they said was happening at the camp which was being held in Lucknow. The reason why this is happening is because sexual harassment, as we know, is an exercise of power, here specifically by people who are going to determine their careers. So FIR is neither a validation of truth, nor does it necessarily change the inequity of power that is happening here. The reason why Vishakha and the POSH Act of 2013 gives an option of an in-house committee and places a lot of statutory responsibility on the head of the organization. Here, the direct allegations are being made at the head of the organization. There is no burden on them. As Ms. Bedi said, they have a right. Would the FIR and would the police suddenly act in a way as though there is no power operating here? The responsibility squarely falls on the state, on the government, and particularly the Wrestling Federation. For starters, there can be no equity. There can be no principle of equity unless this gentleman is asked to step down. And of course, I say gentleman only sarcastically.
You're saying principle of equity. You're looking at the power equation. Jagmati Sangwan, as a national vice president of AIDWA, but a former Indian volleyball player, do you see an asymmetry of power? A powerful man who has been the president for 11 years of his federation versus Olympic athletes who brought glory to the nation, but perhaps cannot combat or face a powerful man. Is there an asymmetry of power here, which is part of the problem in cases like this?
Yes, absolutely. Always we are finding that when these girls are coming out while showing every type of bravery, when they are coming to speak out against the sexual assaults and other atrocities, then the whole system stands with the accused. Here in Haryana, a girl athlete and junior coach, she has already lodged an FIR with the Chandigarh police. But still, the minister is sitting in the cabinet, and he is also the president of Haryana Olympic Association.
You're referring to the sports minister of Haryana, who continues to remain in office despite these allegations.
And despite lodging the FIR by the assaulted girl, she has already and the sections against him are non-bailable also. Still he continues with the cabinet. He is also heading the Haryana Olympic Association. When the whole human rights protection agencies, they also stand with the assaulter, and the state machinery, they also stand with the assaulter. Then these girls, they find themselves surrounded by a very hostile atmosphere. We have seen in Ruchika Girotra case, we fought for 19 years, the Anand family and we, and the 16 years old girl who came out to speak against the president of the then tennis association,
right.
Mr. Rathod. After 19 years of very costly fire, because the girl was forced to commit suicide, her father lost his life during
so you're saying it's a long struggle. You're giving the example of Ruchika Girotra. Remember, this is a case which had captured the public imagination at the time, and in that case too, the girl's family struggled to get justice. Trisha Shetty, have you, as a founder of an NGO that works among women who may often not want to speak out because of the fear factor, do you believe there is a fear factor, that in that sense what the women wrestlers have done is unique in a way? They've used their special position as Olympic wrestlers in a way to break this Omerta code of silence.
Undoubtedly, as Brinda so eloquently mentioned earlier, under the POSH Act, when you're accusing a person of sexual harassment who is the head of the institution, the Act mandates that then you cannot go to the ICC, because the ICC at the end of the day is answerable to the head of the institution. You therefore must go to the LCC, right? Now, what are these locally established bodies? Who is presiding over these bodies? You can imagine when...
Can you explain to our viewers ICC and LCC?
So under the POSH Act, any company or any institution that has more than 10 employees must institute an internal complaints committee, which then will have an independent member from an NGO, which will have members who are employed by the organization, usually women, who will look over any cases of sexual harassment that are reported by employees. Now, if the person you are alleging is harassing you is the boss of the company, then it could be said that, of course, the ICC will not be able to act in an independent capacity. Therefore, you direct the case to the LCC. Also, another provision within the POSH Act is, if the crime that you are alleging that is committed against you also falls within the ambit of a crime under the penal code, right, the IPC, then the institution must help you with filing the complaint with the police, because at the end of the day, the institution is mandated to protect you. In this case, we are talking about a person who's the head of the federation, who is also an acting member of the Lok Sabha, a person who has 4 pending criminal charges against him, and we must state what those charges are, right? Of attempted murder, of rioting, of decaying, a person who has self-proclaimed to kill a gunman in an interview, and who's also tarnishing the name of the survivors by calling them a political power play, by saying that this is a dharna like Shaheen Bagh that is orchestrated against him. So this person who's been alleged of serious crimes of sexual harassment by multiple women is then going on record defaming the good name of these women. Here we must again ask.
So you're saying therefore an internal panel needs to be appointed by, possibly in this case, the Sports Ministry, Brinda Grover.
No internal panel.
I'm
saying the state must be accountable.
The state must be accountable, and therefore the state will have to carry out an inquiry. Now there's a 7-member IOA committee which has been set up, Brinda Grover, with some distinguished names in it. Is that enough?
I think time will tell. It's too early to say. What I do want to underline here are 2 things. I think what is positive is, we saw not just the women wrestlers, we saw a lot of the men wrestlers sitting in solidarity, support. And I think that's an important breakthrough in our social consciousness. This is not a women's problem that will be handled by women. It's an issue which is going to trouble every field, including sports. Secondly, 48 hours have passed. We have not seen any positive response, affirmative, confidence building response from the government. The MP, as has been rightly pointed out, is not only the head of the federation but is a member of parliament. There is no point in rhetoric from the political class unless women see actual action when an incident happens. This is in the public glare. The message is going out to women as a class across the country. You are going to, sexual harassment, I believe today, is one of the biggest hurdles that women in this country face to progress. The 7-member committee must have more external members who will be distinguished not only in the field of sports, but who understand gender, who understand law, and who will have impeccable credentials that they will be impartial. Only then will there be confidence now.
You know, Kiran Bedi, this is a question now of the credibility of the government. This is a government which speaks, this is a government that speaks of, this is a government, Kiran Bedi, that speaks of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which speaks about women's empowerment. Haryana has been used as a showcase of what the government intends to do. These athletes have been made a showcase of how India is changing. Now when these athletes come out, there seems to be, it's now 48 hours since these allegations were made. The minister is character assassinating the girls, and the government has been mostly silent. They haven't been willing to call off the bluff of Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. What's the message that goes out then?
Well, I don't know whether in this legal aspect, because there's a lot of legalese involved as well. But they are patiently impatient, I think. The government is being patiently but impatient. The fact that they've got this member committee of the IOC, I think government just has to wait for this report and get into action. Nothing stops them.
No, but should we step aside? I mean, how can, and this is not just true of wrestling, but let's assume that the head of your organization is accused of sexual harassment. As long as he continues in that position of power and influence, no report will be seen as truly objective, Kiran Bedi. So the first thing is he should step aside, and then you can have a proper inquiry.
But the IOC is not now dependent on this man's presence. I think the IOC, it's pretty well, it's a very
but
well...
Their careers are. But their careers are. Their future in wrestling is still dependent on him. Their careers and future in wrestling
I think we should give the members a chance.
How can this man continue to occupy this office?
So you're saying, Brinda Grover is saying he should step aside for any inquiry to be seen as fair. Okay.
Well,
let Kiran Bedi respond. Do you think, Kiran Bedi, in the first instance, let's assume tomorrow this was not wrestling. This was a top corporate. And the corporate boss is accused by many of his employees, and the male employees stand by them with these allegations. Should that individual continue? In many cases, that's the problem. We've seen the individuals brazen it out and use their power to, in a way, silence these voices. That can't, you know, in this case, it's out in the public glare. In other cases, it's hushed up.
I think the only thing is this gentleman is very thick-skinned. Had he not been thick-skinned, he wouldn't have gone this far.
Why is the government quiet? He cannot hold this position if the government who asks him, government can remove him from that post. This is not his private fiefdom. The Wrestling Federation of India is not his private property. Why should the government, why does the sports minister not ask him to step down? Doesn't the sports minister have that power?
As I said,
I don't care about his thick skin. What is the government doing is the question.
Okay, Kiran Bedi, you want to respond? Should the government, as I said, a government which is claiming Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, encouraging women athletes, and these are now, you know, Olympic medalists, surely the government should be seen to be standing by them more strongly.
I think the government seems to be standing by, but it's giving the process a due. Rather than this gentleman take you to the court and say, these are my powers. I think it's a matter of ethics. This man is very thick-skinned. Absolutely thick-skinned.
The Wrestling Federation of India head has not been asked to step down by the government.
Okay.
The government is supporting him if they don't ask him to step down.
They've given him, Brinda Grover, the government issued a statement. Just a minute, ma'am. Brinda Grover, government issued a statement 2 days ago giving him 72 hours to respond. Do you believe that that is 72 hours will end on Sunday or tomorrow evening?
Ask him to step down. I'm sorry. He can step down and give as many responses as he wants to. He cannot continue to occupy that office. He needs to be removed from that office if there has to be even a remote possibility of an inquiry. Leave aside a fair inquiry. This is basic equity. I am shocked that people think that the government is giving him a chance. Give the women of this country a chance for once.
Okay, you're saying the balance of probability, the women should be in the interest of equity, women should be given the chance to have their voices heard, and he should step aside till then. Jagpati Sangwan, your experience as you gave us of Haryana is that do the men in such cases use their power, the clout, to in a way crush these inquiries or threaten or spread fear?
Yes, first of all, they dare to commit such crimes because they are there in the position of power. Secondly, remaining there, they continue to influence the whole investigation process and the procedure of justice. For example, in Haryana, DGP Haryana has constituted a SIT from the side of Sports Minister, not from the side of victim. From the assaulter side, he has constituted a committee to investigate the character of
you're saying the government, is investigating its own.
Rajdeep, please give me 1 minute. I want to say that it is not a matter of one individual. The state and these federations are run by the Constitution of India, and every federation has to have a internal complaints committee. In this case, this federation has no internal complaints committee, and the man who is claiming that I'm not going to quit because I have been elected by the people of India. First of all, the people of India don't elect the president of WFI.
No, but Ms. Sangwan, when we ask this question, when we ask this question, ma'am, when we asked this question to Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, he said, no, I have a committee. In fact, Sakshi Malik is part of the committee. She should speak. She should have spoken out earlier.
No, there is no such committee. There is some ethics committee.
The IC has no role against the boss.
Committee. And if the federation has no internal complaints committee, it can be de-recognized by the IOA. And
so you're saying there is no committee. You're saying the first thing that should have been done was that there should have been a process much earlier, because Vrinda Grover, the point often made is, why have these girls spoken out now? I've often heard this question being asked in the last couple of days. Why did they not speak up earlier?
It costs them very high.
When they have spoken out now, what has happened? Character assassination. They are being threatened. Backdoor communication. Supporters are being threatened. That is why women don't speak out. They weigh the consequences. They have put their careers, their lives, their reputation, their social status on the line by speaking out. Women don't speak out because the Wrestling Federation of India did not give confidence, because the head himself is implicated here. The atmosphere there did not give confidence.
Okay.
The responsibility and the onus lies squarely on the Wrestling Federation and now on the government of India, which is standing by him. Don't forget, Kuldeep Sengar, the MLA, was only removed when the women of this country outraged at this MLA. Now we have a member of parliament and the chair of Wrestling Federation.
Okay, you know,
and the government is not removing him yet.
In a sense, the more powerful you are, the more likely you are to get away. Trisha Sethi, from your experience of dealing, particularly in the corporate world, do you find that that is true there? This is Wrestling Federation.
Can I come in, Rajdeep?
Yeah, just a minute, ma'am. Just let Trisha respond.
Can I just say there is firstly something to be said about people who enjoy political patronage in our country or occupy seats in parliament who are also being then duly elected as presidents of sports fraternities, right? Of course there is a complete abomination of a power circle here, and to reduce a alleged repeat offender who has criminal cases against him down to someone with a man with thick skin is not something that makes the government of India look good. Again, a government of India and a sports minister who are only too happy to put their faces and put their names against any athlete who wins and gets us titles. The second these athletes go and bring our country fame and repute, our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Anurag Thakur are there in front of the media, in front of the limelight, claiming it as their own personal victory, are in all the press banners. Where are they now? With their silence, they are actively letting down these athletes who make the ministers and our country look good.
Kiran Bedi, is there a reason in a way you've dabbled a bit in politics, but you've also been a sportswoman, you've been a police officer of distinction. Do you believe it's time for those in power to be trained and educated in a way about what's at stake here, that they need to get some lessons in the way you deal with such situations? They seem to treat it at one level as business as usual is the worry.
Well, sometimes I think it's too late to educate these kinds. It's too late in the day. These kinds of decencies are too late in the day. We are expecting little too much. Why don't we have better kind of people who will lead these kind of associations? Why not? Why not encourage more sports persons, themselves who are active sports persons, when they retire, they preferably take charge of the sports associations. That's the real challenge. I think we got not the right kind of people. We got the wrong kind of people leading many sports associations, and all of us have gone through and suffered through in our careers. The good news is that here are women who've united for the first time, men and women, and who've spoken, because single voices don't work. Single voices I've seen do not work in sexual harassment. What works in sexual harassment is combined voices, visibility, media support.
Well, there's media support, there's visibility in this case, and which is why this case is being tracked by us in the hope that it will shake up a system, a corrupted system where our politicians want to take photo ops with the athletes, but will not give them what they want, the dignity and the respect that they deserve. Photo ops are all very well for politicians to take with winning athletes, but when they are here on the street, they are being paraded up and down to Shastri Bhavan while the MP is sitting in his Gonda fiefdom. Think about it, and I thank all these women for speaking out once again here on the show tonight.